The impossible alliance. The Hegemony Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display showed another system falling to the Void Harbingers. 17 worlds lost in less than a stellar cycle. Billions of lives extinguished. The chamber, once a marvel of alien architecture with its crystalline spires and gravity-defying platforms, now felt like a mausoleum, a place where hope came to die. High Counselor Xerex, the eldest of the Viralthi species with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian, closed all four of his eyes in a gesture of mourning. Around the circular table, representatives from 22 spacefaring civilizations, some with technologies dating back millennia, sat in defeated silence. The defensive line at Proxima Centauri has collapsed, announced Admiral Thren, her translucent tentacles dimming with each word. Our predictive algorithms failed again. The Harbingers adapted to our strategy within minutes. This enemy, Xerex's voice cracked, they anticipate every move, counter every technology. 300 years of unified galactic peace, and now we face extinction within a cycle. The Void Harbingers had appeared 18 months ago, emerging from the darkness between galaxies. They didn't communicate. They didn't negotiate. Their ships, if they could even be called that, resembled massive obsidian shards that absorbed rather than reflected light. They consumed worlds, transforming entire planets into more of their terrible vessels. "We've deployed every weapon in our combined arsenals," said Merrick, the Quandari representative whose crystalline form reflected the emergency lights pulsing throughout the chamber. Gravity weapons, dimensional disruptors, even the forbidden quantum cascade protocols. Nothing works for long. "There is one option we haven't considered," came a quiet voice from the edge of the chamber. All eyes turned to Science Director Lyra, a Solari whose luminescent form glowed softly in the dimmed light. The Solari rarely spoke during military discussions, their species preferring scientific pursuits over warfare. "Speak, Director," Xerex prompted, desperation evident in his tone. Lyra's form brightened slightly as she interfaced with the room's systems. A new star system appeared in the display, Yellow Star, 9 planets, the third a vibrant blue-green marble. "I propose we contact the humans." The reaction was immediate. Laughter, scoffs, and dismissals erupted around the table. The humans? Admiral Thren's tentacles waved dismissively. They'd barely achieved FTL travel a century ago. They haven't even unified their own planet properly. "Their technology is primitive," added Merrick. "They still use nuclear fission on some of their vessels." Xerex raised a hand for silence. "While I appreciate creative thinking, Director Lyra, the humans are not even provisional members of the hegemony. They're still under observation status. That's precisely why we should ask for their help," Lyra insisted, her luminous form pulsing with conviction. "The Void Harbingers predict our tactics because all our species evolved with similar logical foundations. But humans..." She manipulated the display to show historical records from Earth. Humans fighting wars against each other with tactics that made no logical sense, employing strategies that should have failed yet somehow succeeded. Humans putting themselves at risk to save others with no genetic relation. Humans creating art that served no evolutionary purpose. "They're illogical, emotional, unpredictable," Lyra continued. "That might be exactly what we need against an enemy that can predict logical patterns. What could they possibly offer against an enemy that has defeated our combined might?" Xerex asked, though his tone suggested he was listening. "They have a new ship," Lyra replied. "Earth Defense Force's prototype vessel uses principles even our scientists find unorthodox. It's called the Defiant." Commander Elise Harper stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as her ship emerged from the construction bay. At 42, she'd spent her entire adult life in the Earth Defense Force, working her way up from shuttle pilot to commander of humanity's most advanced vessel. The scar that ran from her right temple to her jaw, a reminder of the Third Resource War, pulled slightly as she smiled. The Defiant wasn't beautiful by conventional standards. Unlike the sleek, uniform designs favored by most spacefaring races, the human vessel looked almost cobbled together, a patchwork of materials and technologies that reflected humanity's use what works philosophy. "She's ready, Commander," said Chief Engineer Ramirez, joining her at the viewport. "Though I still say the Chaos Drive is more likely to turn us inside out than actually work." Harper's lips quirked into a half smile. That's what they said about faster-than-light travel, and yet here we are. The Chaos Drive was the heart of the Defiant, an experimental propulsion and weapons system that deliberately incorporated random fluctuations and unpredictable energy patterns. It violated virtually every principle of efficient engineering, but initial tests had shown remarkable results. "Final system checks complete," reported Lieutenant Commander Chen over the comm. "All experimental systems are online and functioning within acceptable parameters." "Acceptable meaning they probably won't kill us immediately," Ramirez muttered. Harper ignored the comment. "Begin boarding procedures. I want all crew at stations in 2 hours for." "Commander Harper," the station AI interrupted. "Priority transmission incoming from Earth Central Command." Harper frowned. They weren't scheduled to depart for another 6 hours. "Put it through." Admiral Santiago's weathered face appeared on the nearest display. "Commander, plans have changed. You're being deployed immediately." "Sir, our shakedown cruise doesn't begin until—" "This isn't a shakedown cruise anymore, Harper. We've been contacted by the hegemony." Harper's eyes widened. The Galactic Hegemony, the coalition of advanced alien civilizations that had been observing Earth for decades, but had maintained a policy of minimal interaction, had never directly requested human assistance before. "They're facing extinction, Commander," Santiago continued. "And for some reason, they think your ship might help. You're to proceed immediately to Hegemony Station Nexus Prime. Full briefing will be transmitted to your secure channel. The Hegemony is asking for our help." Harper couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. Santiago's expression was grim. "Apparently, they're out of options. Coordinates are being transmitted now. Good luck, Commander. Humanity is counting on you." The transmission ended, leaving Harper staring at her reflection in the darkened screen. Whatever threat had the mighty hegemony desperate enough to ask for human assistance, it had to be unlike anything they'd ever faced. "Well," she said, turning to Ramirez, "looks like we're going to find out if the Chaos Drive works sooner than expected." When the Defiant dropped out of FTL at the coordinates of Nexus Prime, the crew fell silent at the sight before them. The Hegemony Station, a massive structure of interlocking rings and spires that housed representatives from dozens of civilizations, was surrounded by the largest concentration of warships Harper had ever seen. Vessels of every conceivable shape and size formed a defensive perimeter around the station, their designs reflecting the diverse species that crewed them. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Navarro from the tactical station. "There must be thousands of ships out there." "And they're still losing," Harper noted, observing the battle damage visible on many vessels. "Lieutenant Chen, open a channel to Nexus Prime." "Channel open, Commander." Harper straightened in her command chair. "This is Commander Elise Harper of the Earth vessel Defiant, responding to your request for assistance." The main view screen activated, revealing a beam of pure luminescence, a solari, if Harper remembered her xenobiology correctly. "Commander Harper, I am Science Director Lyra. Thank you for responding so quickly. Please dock at Bay 14. The High Council awaits you." The transmission ended abruptly, giving Harper no chance to ask questions. She exchanged glances with her bridge crew, reading the mixture of excitement and apprehension on their faces. "Helm, take us in." "Lieutenant Commander Chen, you're with me for the meeting." "Lieutenant Navarro, continue analyzing their defensive formations. I want to know what we're up against." As the Defiant approached the massive station, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not just by the hegemony forces, but by something else. Something waiting in the darkness. The Hegemony Council was not impressed by Commander Harper. "This is what you've pinned our hopes on, Director Lyra. High Counselor Xerex couldn't keep the disappointment from his voice as he addressed the Solari. A primitive vessel from a species that has barely mastered interstellar travel. Harper stood her ground in the center of the vast council chamber, conscious of the dozens of alien eyes studying her with varying degrees of skepticism. Chen stood silently at her side, recording everything with his neural implant. "With respect, Counselor," Harper said, "we came because you asked for our help. If you'd rather we leave." "No," Lyra interrupted, her luminous form brightening. "Commander Harper, please understand. We face an enemy unlike any the galaxy has ever known. The Void Harbingers have destroyed 17 worlds in our territory, and our combined fleets have been unable to stop them." "We've reviewed the data you transmitted," Harper replied. "These Harbingers, they somehow anticipate your tactics and counter them before you can execute them." "Precisely," said Admiral Thrin, floating forward on her gravitational disk. "It's as if they can predict our every move, no matter how complex or classified. We tried randomly generating battle plans using quantum algorithms, but they still adapt almost instantly." "Because your randomness still follows logical patterns," Harper suggested. "Even your AIs think like you do, structured, efficient, predictable." Xerex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "And humans do not." Harper smiled slightly. "Humans are messy. We make decisions based on insufficient data. We follow hunches. We take risks when the odds say we shouldn't. Our history is full of battles won through what you might call illogical behavior. That's why I suggested contacting you," Lyra said. "Your ship, the Defiant, it incorporates principles that our engineers would never consider viable. What do you call it?" "The Chaos Drive," Harper supplied. "It deliberately introduces random fluctuations into our systems. Propulsion, weapons, shields. No 2 firings of our main cannon produce the same energy signature. Our engine output varies constantly. By your standards, it's horribly inefficient, but potentially unpredictable to the Harbingers," Lyra concluded. Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing a formation of obsidian shards emerging from what appeared to be a tear in space itself. "Void Harbinger vessels detected in Sector 7, a disembodied voice announced. "Estimated time to intercept, 18 minutes. Harper studied the display, noting the perfect geometric patterns of the approaching enemy. "How many ships can you deploy to counter them?" Admiral Thren's tentacles writhed anxiously. "Our fleet is at 30% strength. Many vessels are still undergoing repairs from the last encounter." Harper turned to Chen. "Contact the Defiant. Tell them to power up the Chaos Drive and prepare for immediate departure. You intend to face the Harbingers?" Xerex asked incredulously. "Alone. Sometimes the most unpredictable move is the one your enemy dismisses as impossible," Harper replied. "Or suicidal." As she strode from the council chamber toward the docking bay, Harper knew they might not return from this mission. But humanity hadn't survived and thrived by playing it safe. The Defiant might be mankind's first and last contribution to galactic security, but she intended to make it count. And if nothing else, they would show the hegemony that humans didn't go quietly into the night. Defiance against all odds. "All stations report ready, Commander," Chen announced as he took his position at the operations console. Harper nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the advancing Void Harbinger formation. The enemy vessels, 27 obsidian shards ranging from cruiser to dreadnought class, moved in perfect synchronization, their formation shifting like a living mathematical equation. "This is insane," muttered Lieutenant Navarro, at Tactical. "We're going up against a force that demolished entire hegemony battle groups." "That's why they won't expect it," Harper replied. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, open a channel to the hegemony fleet." Admiral Thren's alien features filled the view screen. "Commander Harper, my vessels are moving to defensive positions around Nexus Prime. I strongly advise you to withdraw to the protection of our formation." Negative. Admiral, the Defiant is engaging the enemy directly. Harper's voice was calm but firm. I request that you hold your fleet in reserve and observe our encounter. If we fail, you'll at least have data on how the Harbingers respond to our approach. Friend's translucent tentacles rippled with what Harper interpreted as concern. You understand this is almost certainly a suicide mission. Harper's lips curved in a tight smile. We humans have a saying, Admiral. Who dares, wins. Defiant out. The view screen returned to the image of the approaching Harbinger fleet. Harper took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision. 200 crew members, the best and brightest Earth had to offer, all potentially sacrificed on a hunch. Engineer Ramirez, status of the Chaos Drive. Operating at 92% efficiency, Commander, came the reply from engineering. Though efficiency seems like the wrong word for a system designed to be deliberately, as long as it's inefficient in exactly the ways we want. Harper turned to her helm officer. Lieutenant Park, set course directly for the center of their formation, maximum velocity. Park's hands hesitated over the controls. Directly for their center, Commander. That's correct, Lieutenant. The last thing they'll expect is for us to fly straight into the jaws of death. Harper's voice hardened. Execute. The Defiant surged forward, its engines pulsing with the unpredictable rhythm of the Chaos Drive. On the tactical display, Harper watched as the perfect formation of the Void Harbingers seemed to hesitate, the mathematical precision of their movement briefly disrupted. They're adjusting their formation, Navarro reported, surprise evident in his voice. It's subtle, but they're definitely reacting to our approach. Good, Harper said. That means they can't fully predict us. Activate the Chaos Shield. The experimental defensive system engaged, surrounding the Defiant in a flickering bubble of energy that constantly shifted in frequency, amplitude, and even physical dimension. Unlike conventional shields that maintained consistent parameters, the Chaos Shield deliberately incorporated randomness. Sometimes it would be strongest at the bow, sometimes the stern. Sometimes it would project decoy fields meters away from the actual hull. 2 minutes to intercept, Park announced. Harper's grip tightened on the arms of her command chair. Prepare all weapon systems. Set targeting parameters to Chaos Protocol Alpha. Under normal circumstances, a ship's targeting computers would calculate the most efficient firing solution. Under Chaos Protocol Alpha, the Defiant's weapons would fire in deliberately unpredictable patterns, sometimes hitting the same target multiple times, sometimes spreading damage across multiple targets, sometimes deliberately missing to create confusion. 1 minute to intercept. The Harbingers are launching something, Navarro reported. Energy patterns unlike anything I've seen before. On the view screen, Harper watched as tendrils of what looked like liquid darkness extended from the obsidian vessels, reaching through space toward the Defiant. Evasive maneuvers, pattern Chaos 7, Harper ordered. Lieutenant Park didn't hesitate this time. The Defiant lurched, spun, and accelerated in a series of movements that would have made any conventional pilot nauseous. The ship's inertial dampeners struggled to compensate, and Harper felt her stomach lurch as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Most of the dark tendrils missed, but one clipped the Defiant's port nacelle. Alarms blared across the bridge. Direct hit to port engine housing, Chen reported. Chaos Shield held, but it was close. The energy signature was strange, almost like it was trying to rewrite the atomic structure of our hull. Harper nodded grimly. Fire all forward weapons. Chaos spread. The Defiant's weapons array erupted in a dazzling display of destructive potential. Phased particle beams, quantum torpedoes, and the experimental entropy cannon all fired simultaneously. Each weapon operated on different principles, each followed different trajectories, and each would impact at slightly different times. Under normal tactical doctrine, this would be considered a waste of firepower. Under Chaos doctrine, it was exactly the point. The Void Harbingers attempted to counter, their dark tendrils lashing out in all directions. But faced with so many different types of attacks arriving in an unpredictable sequence, their defenses faltered. A particle beam sliced through the side of one obsidian shard. Quantum torpedoes detonated against the hull of another, creating fractures that spread across its surface like cracks in ice. Direct hits confirmed on 2 Harbinger vessels. Navarro couldn't keep the excitement from his voice. They're actually taking damage. Harper leaned forward. Bring us around for another pass. Different angle, different speed, different weapons configuration. Nothing about this attack should resemble the last one. As the Defiant maneuvered for a second strike, Harper glanced at the tactical display showing the Hegemony fleet holding position near Nexus Prime. She could almost imagine the shock those alien commanders must be feeling, watching a single primitive human vessel accomplish what their combined might had failed to do, hurt the Void Harbingers. The second attack was as chaotic as the first, but the Harbingers were already adapting. Their formation had lost some of its perfect symmetry, becoming more fluid, more responsive. Dark tendrils lashed out with greater accuracy, one scoring a direct hit on the Defiant's ventral hull. Hull breach on Deck 5. Chen reported as the ship shuddered violently. Containment fields holding, but we've lost 2 of the variable geometry panels. Harper nodded grimly. The variable geometry panels were key components of the ship's physical unpredictability. They could reconfigure the Defiant's external profile, changing sensor readings and even altering its mass distribution. Casualties? None, Commander. Section was evacuated per Chaos Protocol. Another tenet of Chaos Doctrine: always expect the unexpected, including damage to your own vessel. The Harbingers are adjusting their tactics, Navarro warned. They're trying to establish a predictive pattern based on our previous attacks. Harper smiled tightly. Then let's give them something completely different. Helm, take us into a spiral approach. Engineering, cycle the Chaos Drive to Configuration Delta. Weapons, prepare the gravity mines. The Defiant spiraled toward the Harbinger fleet, its energy signature fluctuating wildly as the Chaos Drive cycled through various configurations. As they approached, the ship released dozens of small devices that appeared insignificant on sensors. The gravity mines activated simultaneously, each creating a localized distortion in spacetime. Unlike conventional mines that simply exploded, these distortions pulled and pushed in random directions, disrupting the perfect formation of the Harbinger vessels. 3 obsidian shards collided, their structures grinding against each other. Now, Harper ordered, all weapons, maximum chaos. The Defiant unleashed its full arsenal, each weapon targeting a different Harbinger vessel. The entropy cannon, the ship's most powerful and unpredictable weapon, fired directly at the largest of the obsidian shards, its beam of chaotic energy slicing through the enemy's defenses like they weren't there. For a moment, nothing happened. Then areas of the massive Harbinger vessel began to destabilize, its molecular bonds breaking down in unpredictable ways. Pieces of the ship simply dissolved into space, revealing glimpses of something inside. Something organic, pulsing with dark energy. What the hell is that? Navarro whispered. Harper stared at the image on the view screen. Their control center, or maybe the Harbingers themselves. Target that area specifically. All available power to the entropy cannon. The Defiant's entropy cannon fired again, the beam striking the exposed organic core of the Harbinger vessel. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The entire obsidian shard convulsed, dark energy discharging in all directions as the entity inside, whatever it was, reacted to the attack. Commander, Chen called out, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Thren. The Hegemony fleet is moving to support us. On the tactical display, Harper saw the massive alien vessels breaking their traditional formations, attempting to mimic the Defiant's erratic movements. Tell them to focus on the exposed cores, Harper ordered. That's their weakness. The combined assault of the human vessel and the Hegemony fleet overwhelmed the remaining Harbinger vessels. Without their perfect formation and with their weakness exposed, the once invincible enemy began to falter. One by one, The obsidian shards shattered, their organic cores exposed to the entropy weapons that seemed particularly effective against them. As the last Harbinger vessel disintegrated, silence fell across the Defiance Bridge. The crew stared at the viewscreen in disbelief, watching the debris of their enemy scatter across space. "We did it," Navarro finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "We actually did it." Harper released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Status report. Hull breaches on decks 3, 5, and 11. Chen reported. Chaos drive operating at 67% efficiency. Weapons systems at 43%. "But we're still here, Commander." "Open a channel to Nexus Prime," Harper ordered. High Counselor Zerex's face filled the viewscreen, all four of his eyes wide with what Harper interpreted as shock. "Commander Harper," the alien leader said, his voice solemn, "the hegemony owes you and your crew a debt that can never be repaid. You have done what our combined might could not. You have shown us that the Void Harbingers can be defeated." Harper nodded. "They weren't invincible, Counselor. They were just facing enemies too predictable to be effective against them. A limitation we failed to recognize in ourselves," Zerex acknowledged. "Perhaps there is much more we could learn from humanity than we previously believed." "I think," Harper said, glancing around at her exhausted but triumphant crew, "that there's a lot we can learn from each other." 3 months later, Commander Harper stood in the newly established Hegemony Earth Liaison Office on Nexus Prime, watching as human engineers worked alongside alien counterparts to integrate chaos theory principles into the hegemony's defense systems. "It's remarkable," said Science Director Lara, her luminous form floating beside Harper. "In just a short time, your species has revolutionized our approach to warfare, engineering, even medicine. The deliberate introduction of controlled unpredictability has applications we never imagined." "And your species have advanced our technology by decades," Harper replied. "Earth's first colony ships are already preparing for launch using the drive systems you provided." The war against the Void Harbingers continued, but the tide had turned. With each engagement, the combined human hegemony forces grew more effective, blending the advanced technology of the aliens with the unpredictable tactics of humanity. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," Harper said, turning to face the Solari. "How did you convince the Council to contact Earth in the first place? From what I understand, most of the hegemony considered us barely more advanced than primitives." Lyra's form brightened slightly, the equivalent of a smile. "I showed them your history, Commander. Not just your wars and your technology, but your art, your literature, your philosophy. I showed them how humans have thrived not despite your chaotic nature, but because of it." She gestured toward the viewport, where Earth was just visible as a small blue dot among the stars. "In a universe that trends toward entropy, most species fight against chaos. Humans embrace it, harness it, find beauty in it. That is your greatest strength. And now, perhaps, it will be ours as well." Harper smiled as she watched human and alien engineers working side by side, former adversaries, now allies against a common threat. The galaxy had lived in fear until one human warship changed everything, not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through humanity's unique gift: the ability to find order in chaos and strength in unpredictability. The stars stretched out before them, infinite in their possibilities, and for the first time in ages, the future of the galaxy looked bright.